Hello, welcome back to the Project Hercules Diaries, where we set up in the garage on the mighty Bridgeport. So I have the timing case of the engine cases here set up, and I'm in the middle of a job to make some more clearance for the sleeve drive crank. You may remember on a previous video there wasn't quite enough clearance, so I've just been opening up this bore here, which is on the inside of the engine. The sleeve drive crank bearing pushes in from the other side and fits on the bottom of that shoulder. I've left about a quarter of an inch there, about 8mm of shoulder, and then I've taken out the bore to give clearance for the ball on the end of the sleeve drive crank. And in the previous video you could see that the webbing was just catching on here and just catching on there. No doubt it would have been doing so at the top as well. So it's going quite well. I'm getting a lovely finish. I am limited a little bit because I've got UK domestic single phase supply through an inverter to the standard three-phase supply here, so I'm gonna have to take I've been taking quite light cuts, sort of 5 to 10 thou. The engine won't turn much more than that, but it's coming on nicely. I should get enough clearance at the end of it. I may have to do a little bit more in here because at the top of the sleeve, the nuts on the top of the sleeve that hold the ball joint in place probably come into this area, so I may have to get a vertical mill and just take something out there. But the first job is to open this out and then to measure again next door and see how it fits. So that's what I've been doing. I've been using a boring head here, which is quite sturdy, in the R8 mandrel, and on the Bridgeport I've just written a little bit of CNC. It's very simple code. It starts the motor, it comes down at a slow feed rate to a fixed depth, stops the motor, pauses for the motor to come up to speed and the motor to stop, and then returns to the start point. So every time I press the button it does that. I can put the cut on, press the button, watch it go down and come up, then put the next cut on, and we're almost about there. I plan to take it so that this bore here, the circumference of the bore just lines up with the edge of the timing case there. So I've taken it as wide as I can, diameter wise, without cutting into the metal on the outside of the cases, which is pretty good. The only thing I do, just out of interest, if I'm doing this, latest addition to my control box here, these two switches here disable and enable. You can hear them coming, and they disable the X and Y stepper motors. And the reason I do that is two things. Number one, if there's a long period of time and they're not doing anything, just applying holding torque, they get quite warm, and there's no point putting that kind of strain on the motor. And number two, if I inadvertently on my touch screen touch the screen, it moves the table, and I wouldn't want that to happen when there's a cut in progress, because it would spoil the cut and potentially spoil the job, which would be a disaster. And equally, even if there's nothing happening, if the table moves, you've then got to put a clock in and re-zero it. So I usually apply a heavy lock on the X axis, heavy lock on the Y axis. I lock the knee, and I disable the stepper motors. That's just what I do when I do a boring operation. When I press the button, you'll see what happens, and it gets a bit noisy, so the video will just stop in a moment. As usual, thank you for watching. More updates will follow. Hopefully this time we will have clearance when I've finished. There we go, more updates to follow. Thanks for watching.